C7 spinal cord injury like John, being able to independently move from laying down to sitting at the edge of the bed allows you to transfer to your wheelchair and dress at bed level. Even with much of your body paralyzed, you can move from a supine position into long sitting and then to short sitting on a bed or mat using muscle substitution and momentum. We will discuss 3 common techniques for achieving long sitting: roll and walk on elbows, roll and throw, and hand stabilized, followed by a technique for long sitting to short sitting. Over time, many people modify these techniques to what works best for them. There are some precautions that you must consider. Make sure there is enough space from the edge of the bed to prevent falling. Do not attempt this activity if you cannot avoid putting pressure on or dragging areas of skin breakdown. Confirm with your doctor or therapist that your flexibility and strength are sufficient, especially in your neck, shoulder, low back, and hamstrings. Obtain clearance from a surgeon for this activity if you use a spinal orthosis or brace for your neck or trunk. If sitting up causes dizziness, make sure you have someone else there with you to help practice and rest as needed. And if your injury level is above C8, keep your fingers bent, not flat, during bed mobility to preserve tenodesis. The key muscles for this activity, depending on the technique, may be the anterior, middle, and posterior deltoids, infraspinatus, teres minor, biceps brachii, brachialis, and brachioradialis, and wrist extensors. Supine to long sitting, Technique 1, walking on elbows. Step 1. John rolls from his back, or supine position, to his side by creating momentum with a synchronized movement of his head and arms. Step 2. Once inside lying, John must then transition to the face down or prone position, which can be very difficult at first. John can work his lower elbow underneath him by using leverage from his other arm. He may also improve leverage by fixing the hand of his upper arm against his head, or positioning the elbow of the lower arm up closer to the head, as it decreases the distance for bringing the upper body over onto the elbow. To get up on elbows, John uses the momentum of his head to shift his weight over one arm, while bringing the unweighted arm in closer to his body. John repeats the side-to-side weight shifting until he brings both arms underneath him in a propped on elbows position. Step 3. John then walks his elbows towards his legs, shifting his weight to one arm by bringing his head over the supporting shoulder while moving the unweighted arm towards his destination. Next, John weight shifts in the opposite direction to bring his other arm forward as well, continuing this pattern until he is within reach of his legs. This often occurs when the trunk is at an angle smaller than 90 degrees. Please note that the neck should have a near normal range of motion to be effective when weight shifting. Step 4. John then shifts his weight over the supporting elbow to hook his legs and stabilize himself. Then he pulls his torso up over his legs using his elbow flexors, biceps brachii, brachialis, and brachioradialis, while swinging his head in the same direction. Simultaneously, John must also quickly extend his other arm using his shoulder musculature. Deltoids, infraspinatus, and teres minor. From here, John pulls with the hooked arm and pushes from the extended arm to achieve an upright long sitting position. Please note that hamstring flexibility, 90 to 120 degrees, achieved during a straight leg raise, along with mild tightness in the low back extensors, is important for achieving and maintaining balance in the long sitting position. Technique 2. Roll and throw. Step 1. With a more forceful roll than in Technique 1, John uses his body momentum to roll directly into the prone position. Step 2. Once in prone, John shifts his weight onto one elbow and extends the other arm to assume a side-lying position. He then pivots his trunk around the supporting elbow and throws his free arm back behind him. With both arms extended behind, John can now push up into long sitting. Others without triceps may throw their arms back and lock their elbows straight by rotating palms outward and adducting their shoulders before weight shifting from one arm to the other to push into long sitting. Locking of the elbow is produced by the shoulder musculature, deltoids, infraspinatus, teres minor. Please note that shoulders should have at least a normal range in all motions, with greater than normal combined shoulder extension and external rotation for these movements. Technique 3. Hands stabilized. Step 1. From the supine position, John can stabilize his hands by placing them under his hips or inside his pants or pockets. Step 2. John then lifts his upper trunk by extending his wrists and bending his elbows forcefully, using his elbow flexors, biceps brachii, brachialis, and brachioradialis, and wrist extensors, which need to be quite strong in order for John to use this technique. While John achieves enough lift to bring himself directly into long sitting, others may need to include the following additional step. Step 3. After lifting the upper trunk as high as possible, John could also shift his weight side to side in order to bring his elbows behind him. On his elbows, John would shift his weight to one side in order to throw back his free arm to attain an extended elbows position as described in Technique 2. Once up on both extended arms, John can walk each arm forward into long sitting. Technique 4. Long sitting to short sitting. Step 1. After long sitting, John comes down on the side closest to the mat's edge, supporting his weight on an extended arm or an elbow for greater stability. Step 2. He uses the elbow flexors of his free arm to move each leg off the mat, starting with the one closest to the edge. Step 3. Once both feet are flat on the floor, John pulls with his hooked supporting arm while extending and pushing up with his other arm into the short sitting position. Practicing the following strategies and prerequisite skills may be helpful for attempting this activity in its entirety. Practice each activity's steps separately before attempting the activity as a whole. Try doing steps in reverse. For example, moving from prone on elbows to side lying. Practice weight shifting while prone on elbows, and in supine supported on one elbow or hand. Practice extending your elbows against resistance, throwing one arm back from supine, and throwing one arm back from side lying. Practice dynamic balance in long and short sitting positions, on one arm in supine and side lying.